How are you? My name is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and I'm excited to be here with you today to help you build your best cloud computing career. Maybe your goal is to become a cloud architect. Maybe you desire to become a solution architect or an enterprise architect or a cloud engineer. Whatever the case is, I want to help you get that first solution architect job, cloud architect job, enterprise architect job, cloud engineer job, or any tech career you absolutely desire. I've been working now in technology for over 25 years now. And I've been helping others get their first tech job or get promoted in tech or training them for more than 2 decades. And my whole mission in life is to get you what we like to call cloud hired, which is getting the job you want on the cloud that you desire. In the last 20 years, I've had so many lessons. I've learned how to get people hired with no experience, how to get people careers that are 10 years advanced of everybody else by focusing on the right training versus making the mistakes that most people make. And that's why I'm here to guide you completely free 3 times a week. So while we wait for you to bring in your questions so that I can answer them, and that's the entire reason I'm here, to help make sure you know where to get advice and you're not getting advice from somebody that never had the job before, or getting from people that don't understand the job, or getting from people that are still trying to get hired themselves, which is where most people get their advice. So I'm here to make sure that you get hired by getting the right advice, and you can go to the shortest distance between 2 points, which is a straight line, as opposed to a zigzag. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. That's why we do it. So ask us your questions. But before we do, let's talk about some free things that we have for you coming on right now, as well as a special gift from our team. Tomorrow, we have our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. And this is a webinar where people come from all over the world. It's a fun time. We get live on Zoom. And on this webinar, I will tell you how to leverage your life experience to show the hiring manager you're ready for the job. I will tell you exactly what hiring managers desire. I will tell you what certifications are going to help you get that interview versus which ones will destroy your career. I will tell you the things that you need to learn to get this great cloud architect job or solution architect job. And I'm going to tell you right now, 90% of them are not in certifications. And that's why people can't get these jobs. My students get them every day, even people that have never worked in tech before. It's no problem because they've got the right skills. We'll teach you that. I'll even teach you what needs to be on your resume, and I will teach you how to skip those pesky HR people that have this rubber stamp that says auto reject, auto reject, auto reject. And I'll show you how to get your resume directly in the hands of the hiring manager, where you can show them why they're ready to get you, why they need to hire you and get you cloud hired. So that's all completely free tomorrow. So please join us. The link is in the description as well as the chat box. Now, while we're at it, my team and I, we love to give away as much free stuff as we can. My team and I are writing a book on passing the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam. It's going to be coming out soon, and it's going to be completely free because we want to help you. We don't feel like we want to help you out there, and it's going to be free. So register right now. You'll be able to pre-register, and when the book is ready, you'll get it. And tell some friends because we want to make sure that we give as much free training to help as many people as possible. While we're at it, follow us on LinkedIn. We have so much content to share with you, magazine articles we wrote for multiple places, and we want to make sure that you have the absolute best career, and we will give you career tips, career guidance. Please follow both our company and me on LinkedIn. Who knows, you may even see a brand new magazine article from me this afternoon. And of course, we looked at the current economic data, and we are not happy about it. You know, inflation has gotten so bad. It's the worst it's been inside of 40 years, and it's robbing the survival and success from so many people's family. Here's the secret to success. Increase your income to the point where money is never an object to you ever again. So we brought back our 30% off discount code using coupon code POTENTIAL for 30% off. I want you hired. I want you having a wonderful career, and I don't want you to be caring about money. I want you to be worried about, how do you solve your customers' problems? How do you live a better life? And how do you take better care of your family? So my team brought back the 30% coupon code POTENTIAL last night. So if you want that cloud architect job, take our cloud architect career development program, 30% off with POTENTIAL, which makes our course basically a single day's pay for the average cloud architect in terms of cost. This applies to our cloud engineer career development program if you desire to be a cloud engineer, and our tech career accelerator program if, here's the thing, you're already an architect or an engineer and you want to move into management. We've got you covered for all aspects of your career. So in the chat box, please ask me your questions so we can help you get cloud hired by giving you the right guidance. And while we're at it, give me a hashtag cloud hired in the chat box and a hashtag for the career that you actually desire. And tell me where you're located. I'm in Port St. Lucie, Florida. I know my team is all over the place. Eddie Patrick, welcome, Eddie. It's so good to see you today. What is the pro and con of choosing a specialty between becoming a generic architect? What a great question. So let's talk about that. So when you are generic, it means that you don't really have a focus per se. Now, a generic architect, like a generic cloud architect, still has a focus. The focus is digital transformation of the business. So for the generic cloud architect, you're purely focusing on business. So that's totally fine. So because of this, as the generic architect, you're not really going to be an expert on any piece of technology or any solution. You're going to be an expert on solving business problems. This is excellent. Excellent. And if you focus on that and actually make that your specialty, then it is a specialty. Where does the generic architect become bad? When we've got someone that says, let me get certified in this, and let me get certified this, and this looks like an interesting certification. That's kind of cool. This is interesting. What's the problem with that? The problem with that is as follows. You learn everything other than your job, which makes you the worst architect in the world. So if you're going to be a generic architect, here's your focus. Business transformation. Now that is how you turn the generic architect into a specialty. And that's how you get paid very well, because you specialize in the digital transformation, as opposed to just specializing in just a little of nothing. And a little of this, that is the worst. So if you focus on the digital transformation as a generic cloud architect, you got a good career, a good salary, lots of future things, because you'll end up in those enterprise architecture roles, chief technology officer roles. Now, if by comparison, you're like, I get this DevOps cert and the SysOps cert and this cert and this and this cert, that's the race to the bottom. If you're ever lucky enough to get hired, it'll be the lowest pay, because you'll be somebody that doesn't know enough about anything to be good. That's where generic in your career is a disaster. You don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. When is it good to be a jack of all trades and a master of none? I'll tell you right now. If you were going to go live in the forest and you had to chop down trees and you had to start fires and you had to start fire with your hand and you knew how to go fishing and hunting, then being generic is good. But in today's world, companies want somebody that can actually do the job. So that's where, I don't like that. Now, if you become a specialty architect, and let's talk about what those options are. If you become an architect that specializes in security and specializes in networking, you will also have incredible time. If you're someone that's good on networking, you'll be traveling the world, working with customers as an expert. You may find yourself in Dubai one day, in Vietnam the next day, in Cambodia the day after that, in China the day after that, in Japan the day after that, in Australia a week after that, New Zealand another week. So, and that's the kind of things that would actually occur if you were a specialist. Because as a specialist, you're an expert on cloud networking. And what you have is so valuable. You'll be speaking at conferences constantly. You'll be pulled in on the biggest deals in the world constantly. You'll get lots of visibility. And wow, your career will be like this, and then again, like a rocket ship. No, I will tell you that specializing in a technology is not the best of your options as an architect, but it's still a great architecture, and it's a great architect. So either focus on the business as a generic one, I recommend, but I really don't recommend just focusing on a little of everything, because that's, unless you're focused on the business, that's a problem. You can focus on a tech like security or networking, or IAM, for example, identity and access management. That's its own specialty. Or big data, but something that's not there. And these things I would say, but don't do big data, because that's probably the worst career right now. Lowest pay, hardest jobs to get. But you get the concept. I was just talking about a specialty. Now, where you really can specialize and really make a difference is when you're an expert on an industry. So let's say you learned all about the banking industry. You know how the banks make money. You understand what market making is. You understand the derivatives and things that people do and black box trading systems, and you understand the laws like Sarbanes-Oxley and all these SEC rules and regulations, and you understand, institutional investing and these things. Now when you become an architect that's focused on an industry vertical like banking, whoa, now you're talking some serious money, some serious stuff, because now you're an expert at digital transformation for a bank. So think of this. The generic one is good at digital transformation for everybody. And so you're dealing with like a 80%, 50% business expert, 50% technology professional. But now let's take it, it's a little more. Take it down a notch. Not only of the business acumen as an architect, but you've got that industry expertise, which means you know all about how to improve a bank's financial performance, operational efficiency. Ooh, that's where the magic happens. And I'll tell you right now, when I started out as a regular architect, then I became an expert on networking and BGP specifically. I was consulting on BGP all over the world, And then after that, I was focusing on video solutions. So again, I was focused, and that's why my career was like this when everybody else was like teeter-tottering, because I had a specialty. I was an expert on something. And then when the magic happened. The magic happened is following. Cisco decided they were going to start a healthcare industry vertical, which meant they wanted to design solutions for healthcare. And then they had technology professionals, and they were good technology professionals working on these solutions, but they weren't healthcare people. And then I joined the team, and a bunch of healthcare people joined the team. We had hospital CFOs on the team, and we had physicians on the team, and we had nurse practitioners on the team. And then I was the lead architect for all of healthcare in terms of architectural designs, as a medical professional who could practice medicine, who also worked as a nurse prior to that, who then understood. Now that took my career. It was like a rocket ship in orbit. It was like I left the ground, passed the moon, went to Mars almost overnight. And why? Because I knew how to practice medicine. I knew how to be a nurse. I knew what everybody's job was at the hospital. I knew all the workflows at the hospital. And then when that hospital asked me to design a solution, not only could I have a peer-to-peer conversation with the chief nursing officer, the chief medical officer, the CEO, but people took my designs as instantly credible because they knew I was one of them. And I knew what they needed, and my solutions were incredible. And that was really what took off my career. So when you can specialize, focus on something. If you want to be generic, great, but focus on the business piece, make that your specialty. Focus on your soft skills, executive presence, communication skills, leadership skills, business acumen, poof. Or focus on a technology, great option. Focus on a solution, video conferencing, for example. Again, awesome. Or best yet, become an expert on an industry that you know. For example, my chief operating officer comes from the hotel industry. He started hotels, watched them from concept to launch, launched hotels, ran hotels. If he was going to design solutions for the hospitality industry, they'd be better than somebody else that doesn't know the hospitality industry, which would make him great at that. So that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about capitalizing on your strengths. What is it really about, Win? What do you love? It's about what do you love? See, I love the network. And for me, talking about the network is fun. I enjoy it. It's exciting to me. I like talking about security as well. I love talking about the business components as well. All of that. But you asked me to talk about software, that gives me a headache in about a second and a half because I'm not interested in it. I hate software. But I love the other stuff. So I focused and built a skill set on mine. So it's all about find what you love, do what you love, and become great at what you love. And you'll be fantastic. That's the point. You really liked last night's show. If you had to pick one thing from last night's discussion that was most important to you, B, and would you speak about it more? You know, we talked about a lot of things last night. We talked about the difference between knowledge and certification. We talked about how to interview. Last night, we talked about things that hiring managers care about. We talked about not faking things, like trying to cheat your way through an interview or lying and making up things. So, you know, there's a lot of things that we talked about last night. But, you know, in my experience, you know, it's all about your ethics and your integrity. And I know we talked about that a lot. See, people like to say, you know, in today's world, that people are saying, build your personal brand. And I agree, build yourself a professional brand that shows what you can do. Not necessarily a personal brand, but you can do that too. And what is your real brand? I'm going to tell you right now. What do people say about you when you walk out the room? When you're not in that room, that's your real brand. What everybody else says about you, if you're not there to defend yourself. And I want people to know me, and they do. And I want people to know people. Here's the brand that you need to have. The brand is someone that gets the job done. The brand is someone that can be trusted. The brand is someone that always follows through. The brand is someone that looks out for the best interest of the customers and their company and will not sell something or design something if it's not in the best interest of their company. The right brand is when somebody calls you at 2:32 in the morning, if for some reason you don't answer it or you wake up, call them back at 2:35 to show that you're there, you got the message, and you care. When somebody sends you an email, how fast do you respond to it? And if you can't respond to it, you send a message, I'm on an airplane, I got your message, but the next 2 days are a bit chaotic, I will get back to you. It's all of that. It's all inspiring confidence in you. It's all about showing that you are there for them. I mean, look, I've interviewed 6,000 people, but the first 5,000 people I interviewed, over 4,950 lied to me. Now, that's a problem because I can't hire somebody that I don't trust. No hiring manager can. And here's the thing, when we hiring managers interview someone, we ask a question, and people think they can lie to us or bluff and answer. I mean, it's insanity. And here's the reason it's insanity. We don't ask questions we don't know. So I'm not going to ask somebody programming questions because I'm not a programmer. But I'll ask them cloud architecture questions. I'll ask them cloud security questions. I'll ask them cloud networking questions because these are the things that I know. I'll ask them business acumen questions. So the key is on these interviews, you got to be there. You got to be honest, ethical, and capable. Capable is the key thing. And, you know, it's really interesting because last night we talked on interviews. If I told you that I've never been on an interview that I can remember where I didn't get a job offer, even if I turned it down, it's true. And why is the key why? And the key why is I've always spent a tremendous amount of time in preparation for interviews. Honest preparation. I learned about the company. I learned about the company's needs. I learned about the key things to the company. I learned about what was key to the hiring manager and everybody else I was going to meet with. I looked up what their mission was. I knew it all. Why was this? So two things. I wasn't going to interview for a job for which case I didn't feel like I was a good fit. Number one, I'd rather back out of an interview than go on an interview that I don't think was a fit. And the second piece was I wanted to win the interview. I know a lot of people don't love it when I say the interview is war, but it's war. Your career is war. Prepare for battle, and here's why. You know, it's not like you play, like the kids, they play a soccer game, and whether they win or lose, they all get a participation trophy. That's not life. That taught bad habits. Your career is war. You go interview, and they get 5,000 applications for the position. They interview 50 or 100 people, and one person gets the job. One. So instead of just spewing your resume in a million places and sending thousands of applications and interviewing with everybody aimlessly, prepare for battle and win. I will tell you right now that if anybody's ever been on more than 3 interviews with 3 different companies and not gotten the job, there's a problem. The key is not to keep banging your head against the wall and hoping it stops hurting. The key is to diagnose the correct problem and fix it. So, you know, I really enjoyed our discussion last night because we talked about the key things, the key mistakes that I've seen in interviews for the last 20-some years. And we talked about the 2 really dangerous pieces of interview advice that are coming out now. Specifically, the start an LLC and make it look like you have a job, or take your interview from home so you can cheat. I mean, seriously. Nothing works. So if it all comes down to it, if you ask me at the end of the day, Mike, what matters, it's having the competency for the career, which for the architect is business acumen, leadership skills, executive presence, communication skills, executive communication skills, which are also different, executive writing skills, the ability to do a business case, the ability to negotiate a deal, the ability to sell, the ability to work a booth at a conference, the ability to write a thought leadership document. That's what an architect business skills are. And on the data center side, what are we really talking about? We're talking about, network and data center technologies, because that's the whole cloud. It's the network and the data center. So talking about BGP and IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, route summarization, route aggregation. We're talking about switching concepts such as VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, port channel, ether channel. We're talking about router redundancy protocols such as virtual router redundancy protocols. There's that. Got to keep those in the back of your mind. And then we're talking about NAT, and it's not just NAT going to the internet, it's one-to-one NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, PAT, and all the business cases for NAT, none of which are covered in the AWS Advanced Networking or Certified Solution Architect Professional. It's the real deal versus the fake artificial stuff. Then after that, what else are we really talking about? We're talking about DNS, DHCP, ARP, and proxy ARP. We're talking about WAN technologies, such as IPsec tunnels, SSL-based VPNs, private lines, Ethernet over MPLS, software-defined networking and SASE. And then the data center, we're talking about servers and server virtualization and containers and container orchestration and block storage, object storage, file storage, critical applications like your CRM applications, ERP applications, next generation firewalls, IDS, IPS, VPN concentrators, NoSQL databases, SQL databases. So these are the technologies we're talking about. So going back to that question, you've got to have those fundamental technologies that I'm talking about. Without that, on the tech and business side, there is no job. But going back to the question, it's the integrity and the responsibility and the honor code that you have above those other things that was there. So last night we talked about honesty as the primary thing. So what I tried to do is show you, first, the key is, all those great things, the honesty, integrity there. And then when you mix that with the right competencies, that's when the career does this versus this. So hope you've enjoyed that answer. I know I went a little long and detailed for that reason. Eddie Patrick, cloud hired and cloud architect. When cloud hired, I figured with that name you were in Vietnam. Mr. Gee, cloud hired, it's great to see you. Victor, cloud hired in Atlanta. If you're my Victor that recently got cloud hired, congratulations, and I'm so excited for you. And Eddie, yes, don't be shy, everybody. Bring us your questions. Hi, Burra, how are you today? For your first job, will it be easier to be generic or specialist? In most cases, it'll be easier to be generic because there's more opportunities. So I would generally be generic unless, like if you come from networking like me, yeah, there's that. Or if you truly love networking and you really want to get some deep networking knowledge, do that. But as a rule, it's going to be easier to get your first job as a generic person because there are going to be more of them. Now, over time, when we're talking about career optimization, that's where the real money comes in. But to be fair, when we still have people that we train all the time that are more interested in a specialty, for example, Delroy Batt's a wonderful, fine cloud security architect. He came to me about a year ago. He was in my program for the year, with zero experience. He was working as an EMT. Prior to me, went on 20, 30 interviews. Nobody paid any attention to him. He got the usual come back when you have more experience, which meant he didn't have the skills yet for the job. He came to us 3 weeks later. Poof, he's working in security. And within a year, he's now working as a cloud security architect with no cloud certifications, by the way. And he's doing great. I just spoke to him just yesterday, and he's having a great time in his new cloud architect job, having more fun than you can possibly imagine. And he loves it, loves it, loves it. But as a rule, it's easier to be good at your first job in generic and then move into a specialty with some experience. So I kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Generic's going to be easier. Long-term specialty. Chris, we can go to the next one. Good morning, Lady Godiva, or afternoon, based upon where you're at. How are you today? Burra. Is storage, security, network, and database the main focus to know when it comes to architecture? That's part of it. So, Burra, you have to understand architecture is everything necessary to improve business performance. So Michael Porter at Harvard kind of put it best about 20, 30 years ago, and it's still true today. Architecture is about improving the people, processes, and technology. That's what it takes. So the second we integrate a new piece of technology, how does it change how the employee works? Does it change business processes? Here's an example. In healthcare, we used paper records. I mean, they were sloppy. And the nurses at the nursing station would bet, did Mike want clonopazim or clonidine? Two different drugs. And I mean, literally speaking, the nurses would place bets and then they would call and say who got it right. So that was a sloppy handwriting. And if I told you then medical errors were the 5th leading cause of death in the US, killing 98,000 people per year. And then after that, the US government mandated electronic health records. And poof, medical errors went from 98,000 a year, which was the 5th leading cause of death, to 251,000, which is the 3rd leading cause of death. So was the desire to move to electronic health records bad? No, it was a great idea. But, when I consulted organizations, I talked about the workflow. If you integrate this technology, this will force you to work like this. How do your people do things? Okay, let's look at what technology works for your organization. And that's why I hate reference architecture, because it's about everything. It could be about adding an ice machine. It could be adding RFID tagging to find stuff. It could be integration of blockchain. It could be a SaaS application that's in there. It could be new software. It could be storage. It could be compute. It could be network. It could be security. It could be anything. Architecture is about all the stuff it takes. Now, the majority of stuff that it takes is as follows. Digital transformation. And I just went over that entire list. And most of those things were business. So when it comes to architecture, most of it is business. Business, not tech. Business. So how do we improve top-line revenue? How do we reduce cost of goods sold? How do we improve employee productivity? How do we reduce error defects? How do we increase customer satisfaction? How do we increase customer intimacy? These are business things that people are trying to work on. And the tech is merely a tool to get the job done. So if you had to design a pool and you designed a big, beautiful pool, that's the architecture. Now, when after you design the pool, if somebody comes in with this machine and they dig up the dirt, that's a tool to do it. And yes, that would be part of the architectural plan. And then you might need some paint and you might need a sealant. There are all the stuff. So architecture is about which business problems are you trying to solve. And that's why no one who just does certification and tech training will ever be an architect, because they're learning tools, not transformation. So the main focus is on the business borough. And that's why cloud engineers and cloud architects are different. The cloud engineer focuses on the tech. The cloud architect has to focus on the business transformation. It's different. So what is the main focus? The main focus is how do we improve customer business performance? That's the entire focus. How do I improve customer business performance? Look, I worked with one client, and at the end of the day, I found that an ice machine was the best thing I could do for them. They bought a couple $1,000 ice machine, and it saved them more money than you can count because it affected their workflow. Sometimes it's unified communications. Sometimes it's conferencing. Sometimes it's CRM apps. But usually a cloud architecture, after we figure out which business problems we're going to solve, are the following: networking and data center technologies, which include our compute, containers versus virtual machines, our storage, block storage, object storage, file storage, our networking, routers and switches and WAN and LAN technologies, and our IP addressing, our business applications, CRM applications, ERP applications, supply chain applications, anything that results in the business unified communications. Databases are another tool that we use for either relational databases or NoSQL databases, and those kind of things. But it's also security appliances, and it's also business applications. So remember, Burra, when it comes to architecture, it's always the business. When it comes to engineering, it's always the tech. And that's why people study to be engineers, and they want an architect job, and they're unemployable. I'm going to tell you right now, when people focus just on the tech, you will never get a job as an architect, because the focus of the architect is the transformation. The focus of the engineer is the tech. So, Burra, the question you asked me is exactly what you should do if you wanted a cloud engineering career. If you want to focus on a cloud architecture career, your focus better be on business. So either take a course like mine, get an MBA, but you need that level of business knowledge to work in this job. It's not the tech knowledge. And remember, Burra, we don't ever touch the technology as architects. We design it and present it. So just like the building architect focuses how to design the building, and they get trained on how to design the building and design principles, that's exactly what the cloud architect does. Note the building architect, you don't put a hammer in their hand and they're not hammering they're not building a hotel with a hammer. And the cloud architect doesn't code, doesn't configure, doesn't touch the technology. So hope I answered your question. If you've got further questions, Barbara, please ask it. Thrilled you're here. Chris, we can go to the next one and ask us your questions in the chat box so we can get your cloud hired. Win, can I please share my thoughts on skills assessments? Well, all I'm going to say is this. Many companies have skill assessments. I find them to be completely irrelevant because multiple choice tests or personality tests, we can cheat them, we can fake them. To me, it all comes down to, like they do for the architects, and this is the determination whether they hire somebody or not at a place like AWS. They make them deliver a presentation. They give them an architecture, and they say design it and present it back and sell it back to us. So that's what I think about. Skills assessment tests are fine for certain careers. For example, for a help desk, yeah, you can do a skills assessment test. Do they have the basic competency? Sure. For cloud admin stuff, yeah, you can do a basic skills competency test. But for bigger careers, no. You're not going to do an assessment test of a lawyer. Here, take this multiple choice test and I'm going to figure out if I should hire you. You're not going to do it for a doctor, and you're sure not going to do it for an architect. But for low-level, entry-level positions, yes, there is an appropriate test. And you got to remember, companies like Amazon don't have lots of different positions. And once you implement a process, you sort of use it, but they don't use it very heavily on the big jobs. So I do think there's a validity in it for the right jobs. I just think that it depends on the job. You can't give an assessment test to the president. You don't give an assessment test to a VP of engineering. You don't give an assessment test to a cloud architect, a chief technology officer, a doctor, or a lawyer. But you do for the low-level position. So for that, I think it's smart. And that, what are they really about? What is all this stuff about, Win? It's all based on how do we take 5,000 applications for a single position, whittle them down so we have to interview less. Then again, Win, with our approach, our people generally don't apply for jobs anyway. I mean, like when Delray got his last job, or when Daniel got his last job, or at least they got the job, and I asked them, did you apply for jobs? And they said, why would I apply for jobs? I get 10 people coming to me every day trying to talk to me after the branding work we did, or at least 10 people a week, 20 people like in some cases. So it's all about show that you're great, make the hiring manager people come to you directly, and then you don't have to deal with this stuff until after they've already made the decision to hire you. So I try to bypass HR for everything. Look, I like HR people. They're very intelligent, very educated people that are experts at determining what to pay you, what your benefits are, who fits into an organization's culture, but they can't test you these. So when at one point I was given a skills assessment test, it was by a company. And literally speaking, HR gave me some silly skills assessment tests. And one of the questions was on the test, I had answered all 9. They were like, wow, you're good. They asked me the last one, and they said, what is the multicast address used in OSPF? And I asked them, which one? And they said, what do you mean, which one? I said, do you want the 224.0.0.5 that's used by all SPF routers? Or do you want the 224.0.0.6, which is used by all DR other routers? There's 2 multicast addresses used in OSPF, and I don't know which one you want because it's a trick question. So which one would you like? And the person had no idea. And I said here, and then Chris has got some ideas here that I want him to share as well. So I said to them, because I didn't want the job, I don't want to work for anybody that had what I called a silly assessment test like that. And I said to them, I heard this beeping going on what was an instant messaging client at the time. We used to use it. IBM had a great one, and it was used for secure messaging. And I saw this instant messaging, and I literally said to the HR person that gave me the silly assessment test, I said, do you have any distinguished engineers or architects here? And they said, yes, I do. I said, would you send them a message and ask them which is the multicast address for OSPF that they're looking for, either the 224.0.5 or the 224.0.0.6? And the woman looked at me and I said, I promise you that question is so wrong that when you speak to them, you're going to be surprised. And she looked at me and I said, look, I don't even care about the job at this point, but I do care about the process. She reaches out, sends a message, and 3 seconds later, she starts laughing. She says, I'm told I have to hire you. And she said, I'm also embarrassed that of all the people we've had, you're the first person that ever actually known this, which means, according to the distinguished engineer that I spoke to, you're the only competent person we've interviewed in the last 6 months. So let's talk about what we can do for you. And I said, no, thank you. I'm going to Cisco because I didn't like the process of the assessment test. Now, Chris, why don't you chime in here? Because there are times and places where they're good.
Yeah, so I just wanted to chime in about the oh wow. Okay, yeah, so I just wanted to chime in here. So when people ask about the assessments test, I'm pretty sure what they're talking about are these 500 question assessments that you have to do, or 100 question assessments that you have to do, and you can't different than what you were talking about with the actual person. But I just want to bring this perspective to it, and I'm pretty sure there's some correlation between the industries, but probably not the exact same. In the hotel industry, the same skills assessment and personality assessments and skills assessments and fit assessments and all these things are given to the housekeeper and front desk agent that is earning minimum wage and the general manager and regional director of operations take the exact same assessments. So that should now, obviously in the tech industry they're going to be a little bit different, but I'm pretty sure there's some correlation that if you're taking a skills assessment, it's the same skills assessment that the guy that's in DevOps is taking, the guy that's in the girl that's an administrative assistant, the guy that's an administrative assistant, the person that's an architect. They're getting the same skills assessment, and it's the same. It just take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if it's the last piece, sometimes that's, especially in like a data science field or a software development field, yeah, those will be very important and will probably be one of the last pieces. Whereas in a cloud architect role, the presentation is probably going to be your last piece. But I just wanted to share that in the hotel industry and in other industries, line level employees that earn an hourly wage that either get 20 or 40 hours a week, depending on how busy it is, and the people that are running multiple properties have the exact same assessments. It's mind-blowing. So
it's so true. And Chris is talking about, stay here for a second, Chris. There's two kinds of assessments. There's the Myers-Briggs personality test and the who are you and how do you think and behavioral stuff. Half of the companies use the same thing for every single job in the world, like Chris is talking about.
Yeah.
So you can take that with a grain of salt. Now, some places, like if you are applying for a DevOps engineer, there might be a coding test. Mm-hmm. But if you're applying for an architect, there's no hands-on tests. And for example, like there are different assessment tests for different positions at better tech companies. But as any rule, it's multiple choice. Mm-hmm. And whenever you're dealing with a multiple choice test, you're never getting the answer because some people are good at just figuring out the distractors. Some people are good at taking tests. How do you really know? When you ask someone, if I ask Chris about how to start a hotel from start to finish, whoa, I know he knows. If I ask Chris about operations, I know he knows because he'll explain it to me in a manner that's clear to me that he knows. If he took a test and got 100 on the test, I'd say, let's talk now, Chris, so I can assess you, because I wouldn't take it with any value whatsoever.
Yeah, and also the other thing about the assessments is that they're a piece of the entire puzzle to hiring you. I've seen it. My wife is still in the industry and she does it. I've done it before. Somebody could have completely failed the assessment, but they do so well in an interview, and they do so well in talking about what they know that I go back to them and I ask them, "Are you good at tests?" And they're like, "No, I'm horrible. I can't take tests. Like I freeze up. I fail. I don't know what to do. I get blocks when I'm given multiple answers." Like, and I'm like, okay, that explains, in some people's cases there, you have people that might be dyslexic and it takes them, they can't complete the test in the time frame that they have. So they just rush through it and just click things. So it's just a piece of the entire puzzle. So if you do good on your interviews, if you blow it out of the water on the interviews, which is the big part of our philosophy, is just shutting down the interview, then the assessments is just one other checkbox that you completed. It really doesn't matter how well you do. But anyway, I know we got a lot of other questions to get to, so I'll get
I'm
back
glad
to
you brought in the other questions. Perspective. So, Chris, let's go to the next one. Jimmy Henry. Hi, Mike and everyone else. You're new to cloud technology, but I've registered for your program. I'm very interested in becoming a cloud architect. Well, Jimmy, we look forward to working with you. I'm not sure that we've met or spoken, so hopefully you're in the live classes and I can see you. We've got another fun live class tomorrow. And on Friday, we're going to have a really fun special class this week, some extra special things. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And so can't wait to work with you. More importantly, I can't wait until you're hired about 8 months from now, because that's the goal. I don't care about pieces of paper, certifications, any of it. Neither does any employer, but we care about you being great. And Jimmy, you do the work, we'll make you great. And then when you tell me you're cloud hired, I'll be excited. My cat Cindy will be excited because she's excited with everything that I'm excited. Chris, Alonzo, Leo, Chow, Tracy, Eddie, Anselm, they're all going to be thrilled and excited. And I know I'm missing people when I mentioned that, so because there's a bigger team than that. But, the point is, can't wait to work with you, can't wait to meet you, can't wait till you're cloud hired, Jimmy. Welcome aboard. Hello, Mike. You have applied for several engineering remote works but got rejected. You're GCP certified. How do you boost your skills? Okay, so what I want to tell you first is certification is nothing. Skills are everything. So assuming you've done the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam, which is an engineering exam, not an architect exam, now you realize that you've got about 10% of what you need to do. So Nelson, what do you need? You could take a course like our Cloud Engineer Career Development Program, and will teach you everything. But what does a cloud engineer actually do? So you've got a cloud architect like me that designs the solution, and the cloud engineer is the construction crew that builds it. So they are very deep, very smart, very good technology professionals. So the skills that you need for an engineer are not anything that's in a certification, but here's what they are. You must understand the network and the data center technology, which includes BGP, IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, route aggregation. Again, none of this stuff's going to be covered in a certification, but you need to know it. It includes WAN technologies such as SSL VPNs, IPsec-based VPNs, private lines, Ethernet over MPLS, software-defined networking, and SASE. It includes NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, PAT, NAT to the internet, NAT for overlapping companies where one company acquires another. It involves switching and spanning tree and rapid spanning tree and port channel, ether channel, link aggregation groups, VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, ARP, proxy ARP, DNS, DHCP. And that's just some of the networking things that you need to know. It includes understanding of servers and server virtualization. So set up some server virtualization. Get a server. Install some VMware ESXi, KVM, QEMU, or take our course where you'll be doing it. Build some containers. Deploy some containers in a Docker environment, a Docker plus Kubernetes environment. That's hands-on stuff that matters. It's set up some virtual machines and different things. Build them the hard way on a server as opposed to the cloud where you can just click 3 buttons, and at least you'll understand what the underlying technology is. Set up file servers on a server, NFS, server message block for Windows and Linux kind of things. Get used to that. Set up some databases. Learn some databases. Learn how to do some queries on some databases. Learn how relational databases work. NoSQL databases. Get used to performance tuning them. Read replicas, caching, queuing systems. Learn how to configure some security things, firewalls, VPN concentrators, IDS systems. But realize that's just the data center tech. But you also need to learn the following. As a cloud engineer, you need to be rock solid on Linux. So you need to be setting up Linux. You need to learn how to remove packages from Linux. You need to know how to make a new Linux kernel, how to change Linux drivers, how to install applications, how to lock it down, which services to stop, how to set up cron tab and automate. So those are some of the Linux things you need to do. So you're going to have to get serious Linux training. Now, while cloud architects don't touch the technology, cloud engineers do. And when you're touching the technology, it's a lot of work to be done. So you got to learn some of the automation things. To the cloud engineer, you're going to need to know Python and get some good proficiency there. You're going to have to get good at writing bash shell scripts in Linux at minimum. Wouldn't hurt if you knew how to write Windows PowerShell scripts, but 99% of stuff is Linux, so at least if you knew the Linux bash scripting, you should be fine. Now, infrastructure as code, that's not a cloud architect skill, but for the cloud engineers, you must know infrastructure as code. Show that. These are the kind of things that you need to know. And when you have these skills and you understand it well enough, then you can put these things on your resume. Then you can build the right brand that you need. And when you have the right brand and people see you as an expert, then poof, they're going to come looking for you. But the key is it's really about training. I need you to understand that getting a bunch of certifications does not build a professional career like a cloud engineer. I wish it did. You have no idea how much I wish it did, but it doesn't. That's why we created our Cloud Architect Career Development Program for cloud architects and our Cloud Engineer Program for cloud engineers. Remember, those are your cloud engineering skills. Those. Now, Nelson, when it comes to an engineer, I don't like to say this, but when I speak to hiring managers, and I've spoken to thousands of hiring managers, thousands of them, thousands of recruiters, I have a list of things that they say they want in a perfect cloud architect and cloud engineer. And I've got a list of things they say in tech employees. And a lot of the people say, when I said, what do you want in a cloud engineer? They're like, Mike, get me a human. I'm like, what the heck do you mean? We're all humans. And they say, I want a person. I'm like, tell me what you mean by that. They said, I don't want to have somebody that comes in here, can't walk, can't talk, that I got to lock in a basement, that I can bring in food periodically because I don't want to leave or talk to anybody. I want someone with a good personality, someone that's likable. And they said, Mike, if I can't find that, at least give me somebody I can tolerate. So even just yesterday, an executive reached out to me and said, oh my God, one of your architects was in the room. Thank God, because the engineer spoke for 15 minutes and it was a snooze fest. I asked the engineer to leave the room and then your architect solved it. Good job on your architect, but make sure I don't. And it wasn't an engineer we trained. It was an engineer from some other company. But the point is that's the key, because engineers have a reputation. It's not true, but they have a reputation as being hard to work with and not talking. Show that you got a good personality, that you've got a good level of emotional intelligence, that you can write well, that you can speak well, that you can present well. That is what the employers are actually looking for. So they're equally looking for technical competency, but they're also looking for attitude, energy, enthusiasm, work ethic, leadership skills, emotional intelligence. Can they trust you, and are you competent? So that's what's got to go out there and be in your message. So the secret to getting the harder jobs, the secret to getting your first job is only half the 10. And here's why. When we hiring managers interview somebody, 50% of what we want is technical competency. 50%. It's huge, right? But the other 50% is, can you do the job? Can I trust you? Do you know what you know and know what you don't know, so you don't take down the network like Google, for example? Somebody misconfigured BGP, took down the entire Google Cloud. Facebook, somebody misconfigured BGP, took down the Google Cloud. So, these kind of things happen constantly. So they want to know you know what you know and know what you don't know. Additionally, Nelson, what else do they want to know? They want to know if you can bring out the best in others, if you're willing to work and excited to work and passionate about the work. They want to know that if times get tough, you're going to stick it out and do whatever it takes to get through. And they want to know that you're a team player. So when you're brand new, master those things, because it's going to give you leaps and bounds. So imagine if you wanted to sell a car or a house. Let's say you wanted to sell your house because you wanted a new one. If you want to sell your house, you're going to make sure that it's clean, right? That it's organized so that when somebody looks at your house, they see, wow, this is beautiful. You're not going to have my cat Cindy come to your house and carry around things in her mouth from room to room and leave little pieces of paper in every room in the house and little rubber bands and anything she can put. And then you're not going to throw your toys on the ground and your kids' toys on the ground. You're going to shine up the house. So polish up your presence, shine, develop those skills, build your brand, show the world that you're capable, create some content that shows that you actually know something that separates you from the rest of the people that worked on certification. They got lots of certifications but don't know anything, and then you'll get remote work. Then you'll do it. And there's a lot of remote work out there, and you can get it. I mean, how prevalent is remote work? Well, I can tell you right now, all my employees in the US are remote, all of them. I have 2 employees in Cameroon right now, all remote. I've got 2 remote employees in South America as well. We're all remote, and you can do it. And I've been remote now for 20 years, Nelson. 20 years. So you can be remote, but make sure you get that. Make sure your brand and your advertisement is shining that says, why do I need Nelson? And poof, there you go. You'll be working remote wherever you're at in the world. And a kind of an idea by your name where you're at in terms of remote, but, you know, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Now that all the interviews are conducted virtually, what are some key points in having a good meeting through the camera? Not all interviews are conducted virtually. About half of interviews are conducted virtually. So for the 50% of the interviews that are conducted virtually, it's the same thing. Make sure you wear a good suit, no wrinkles, completely pressed. Make sure your shirt and collar looks good. Position your camera. For example, right now I'm looking at my computer screen. Now I'm looking at my camera. Look at the camera the entire time. While you're looking at the camera, look for things in the person's room. What's in the room? Maybe there's a stuffed animal and you've determined by that there's 2 or 3 stuffed animals. You can look and say they're a kinesthetic learner. Let me use kinesthetic terminology when I talk to them. By having me on your team, you'll feel so secure because you'll know that everything will be done on time and on budget. Likewise, if the person has so many things on the wall of photos of things, you can probably figure out their visual. And you can say things like, I see what you mean. And imagine, and you can, so imagine this picture. I'm here, I'm doing the work, you're home, and you went on vacation, and you know that right now everything's done. But the point is you want to speak in the language of the person, which includes visual, auditory, and kinesthetics. And when you look in that room, you're going to get that information. Of course, you should be doing some reconnaissance ahead of time, cyber stalking all the people on the interview so you know how to do it. But look in the room. Look for micro expression. That's not a micro expression. This is. Look for micro expressions. Do they lean forward when you're talking? They're interested. Do they lean back? Do they cross their arm? Do they look happy? Do they smile? Is it a fake smile like this? A real smile where you can see the wrinkles around the eyes. Look for all of it. Listen for their vocal inflection tones. Listen for the energy and excitement. Listen to that I'm not interested. It's all about reading the room. And if you're in our training program, we'll teach you a lot about how to read body language and auditory language. It's all that. If you really read the person, you'll know when to speak, when to not speak, when to talk more, when to talk less, when to change the topic. And your interviewer will tell you all of that. That's the difference between a scientifically conducted interview like the way we train it versus someone who's just doing it at random and hoping to win. That's the way. Keep that in the back of your mind and you should be in great shape. Read your audience, and read your audience some more. We can teach you this in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program or our tech interview, our interview mastery program. Chris can actually pop the link to that in the chat box. So those are some things to do. So Chris, why don't we go to the next question? I see Wynn has asked a lot of questions and I'm thrilled for that, but I also want to make sure we get to other people's questions too. And Wynn, please feel free to ask more questions. Victor, hi Mike, what can be the best response to a cloud architect interview question? How did you deal with the problem you were facing at your last project? And what did you do? Victor, I get asked this question all the time. And here's the thing. I can't make up an answer for you. Now, you might say, Mike, you've done some cloud architect and solution architect interview question videos. Yes, I have. And when I do them, I teach in the answers all the technology is working so you have a context in how to explain it. Not so you can memorize my words, try and deliver my words exactly, and then what ultimately is going to happen is they're going to look at you and think they stole your words, and you're not going to come across authentic, and there's there. So the best way to respond to this is honestly. Honestly, you had a big project. What did you do? Did you do some research? Great. Did you Did you find a mentor? Great. Did you build a team? Great. How did you deal with it? So that's the key. And it doesn't have to be in the same industry, but it's got to be honest. Look, it's a second somebody lies to me or bluffs or it's not real. I can tell. I mean, neurolinguistic programming gives us a lot of things, but we can also tell by facial expressions. You'll see it all the time. This is going to work. Yeah, this is a great solution for you. That means the person doesn't believe it themselves. Or when you see someone, for example, no, this is exactly how I feel. Touching the nose happens when people lie. Touching the face, because what happens is histamines get released. So you don't want me to make up an answer for you. You want to give it a real answer. See, I'm all about the truth, honesty, integrity. Your answer is real. Real. And kind of keep that in the back of your mind. It has to be real. So find a real problem. Find a real solution and be honest about it. Now, when you made mistakes, if you've made mistakes, that's okay. Paint it in a less bad light, but be honest about it, and then talk about all the things you learned from the mistakes so you don't ever make the same mistake in the future. That's the whole thing. We all fail. We all grow. It's okay to fail because it's not about the failing. It's about what did you learn so you can be better. See, I'm all about win. But in the process to win, you're going to lose some games. Even the best home run hitters basically miss 7 out of 10 times. But a third of the time when they hit it, wow, it's magical. So we got to be realistic. It has to be honest. It has to be. So I want you to think about a problem you have with your last project. Now, what if this is cloud and your last job was healthcare? That's fine. Maybe the healthcare organization rolled out an electronic health record. Maybe there were some new IV pumps. Maybe there was a new controversial medical procedure. Maybe there was an odd patient that the team had to pull together. There's always a problem. So there's two reasons we ask these kind of questions, Victor. One way is from behavioral interviews, which I hate. And the theory of the behavioral interview, which is why I hate it, is as follows. If you made a mistake 10 years ago, they assume you're going to make the same mistake in the future. This is insanity. But that was the theory behind the behavioral interviews when people started them in 1970. Then people stopped doing them because we knew completely they were silly. And now we're doing them again because we think they matter. But at the end, what am I really concerned about when I ask this question? Not what happened there. I'm more concerned about your thinking process. How do you think? How do you deal with times in terms of stress? Do you build relationships? Do you cause conflicts? Do you know how to get help? Do you know your limitations? These are the things that we're looking to do. Now, if you wanted to run a certain scenario past me, I could help you tune that response to sound better, which I do with my students all the time in class when they have things like this, which is fine. But you've got to be real. So it has to start with real. And then it's a matter of learning how to communicate in a manner that paints the real in a good way. So this is why you need exceptionally good executive communication skills, executive presence, executive leadership things for these roles. And this is why you need to know relationship management. Hey, wait, isn't relationship management critical for customer management? It sure is. So these are why they're asking these questions. How do you deal with problems? How do you deal with solutions? How do you design a solution? It all goes into that thing. So it has to be real. So start with something real and then communicate it in a fast, efficient manner that lasts no more than 1 to 2 minutes, unless you need to go longer. Because generally speaking, you want to go short on these answers. To the point, don't babble. Get it out, engage your audience, win your audience, and close. Chris, why don't we go to the next one? Nelson, I assumed you were in Nigeria by your first name, but now you confirmed it, which is great. I couldn't find an internship for those who are practicing cloud engineering work for me to associate with them. Does GoCloud offer an internship program? We offer internship programs to selected students that are doing a very good job as part of our training programs. But also, all of our training programs are a functional internship program. We have our students designing and building clouds, for example, from scratch. Every one of our students does it. And we have our students doing massive projects regardless of the program we're in. And these projects are real experience. And we give people a title inside of our organization while they're doing the internships with us. And that way, our students have real experience, a company behind them. And when our students do well and the companies ask us for reference checks, and they do all the time, we can provide them because we know what our students are doing. Because we're putting them all through some form of an internship. We have an apprenticeship program. We are not some silly certification program. You waste your time, your effort, and money, you get certified in the end. You got a rack of pieces of paper on the wall that you can't do anything with. We put you through real live situations every single day. Every single day. My students work on real projects with me, real architectures that I've either designed or other peers of mine have designed, real big stuff. Why? Because that's what you need to know to do the job. So yes, we offer an internship program. Every student of ours gets put into an internship in some way. And some students that are with us are so very special, they do even bigger internship programs. For example, right now I have someone and she's really helping me with an internship. I will also say that of our team, most of the people I hired started out as interns. And I've got interns everywhere you can possibly imagine. From everywhere, and employees everywhere you can imagine, including Cameroon. And I even actually have someone that actually periodically teaches a class for me in network engineering. He's a strong network engineer, and I think he lives in Lagos, Nigeria. So I know he lives in Nigeria, but I think he's in Lagos. But the point is, when you're really great and you do the right internships, the world will notice. Like I said, I've got somebody that helps me in Nigeria, 2 people that help me in Cameroon, 2 people in South America, and a bunch of people spread throughout the United States. And that's really what it takes to be great. So you got it. Do the internship. Get real projects, real hands-on experience like the kind we do, and the world will come find you. And the world will come find you, and then you'll be in great shape. So yes, we do. All of our students get put into an internship program, and we have to. We can't just be some silly certification program where in the end we took your money and you don't get hired. All of our students get hired that do the work. As long as they stay in there, we give our students up to a year in our program to get hired. It's important to me because I care that everybody gets hired. You can't cash a certification check in the bank, but you can take your skills, get hired, and cash that check in the bank. And that's what we're all about. How do we change your life? So yes, we offer an internship program in cloud engineering. I'm very proud of it. Our students are doing fantastic. We'd love to work with you. It's called our Cloud Engineer Career Development Program. Collins, it's good to see you. Cloud Hire. Good morning, Collins. I can always appreciate hashtag Cloud President Mike Gibbs. Thank you so much. I'm deeply honored for that. Hakeem. Hi, Mike. You heard from an Amazon hiring manager that during the interview you should keep your answers to a minute due to people's attention span. My thoughts. Hakeem, 2 things. As a rule, most answers should be less than a minute, but there are no rules. I generally say yes, keep it less than a minute, but there are times where I like to use what's called the shut down the interview technique that our team invented about 20 years ago. And here's the reason why. Sometimes on an interview, Hakeem, you're going to be asked a question for something where you're a subject matter expert. When you know something so well, this is the chance for you to deliver your 3-minute answer in extreme elegance and simplicity. And in many cases, literally speaking, the interview will shut down. So for example, I was in an interview with Cisco about 20 years ago, and I was a multicast expert. That was my career prior to Cisco. And when I joined Cisco, they said, we're working with the bank and we're dealing with multicast video feeds. How much can you tune the PIM timers? Because every time we get an outage in the network, what we're dealing with is about 10 seconds where the financial feeds don't go down and people lose a lot of money. And I said to them, I've dealt with in numerous cases, and I can get your failure down to 40 milliseconds, but it doesn't involve PIM timers because it's too dangerous, and here's why. When we tune the PIM timers, what happens is we're taking the natural behavior and making it unnatural, and we can cause loops and problems. Now, what we could do with this, and here's what I've done successfully with other providers and gotten the failure down to 40 milliseconds. Instead of relying on PIM, what we can do is we can take our interior gateway protocol, which we're using OSPF already, and we're already using a single area. From there, we can enable some RSVP signaling, we can turn on some label switching, and then we can create 2 MPLS traffic engineered tunnels. Now, on top of that, we can create 2 L2TP tunnels and take that directly to the multicast source. And that way, we've got a primary tunnel and a backup tunnel. And because we're using RSVP to signal the tunnel, we have a guaranteed minimum bandwidth, and RSVP will sense that tunnel going down in a few milliseconds, and within 40 milliseconds, our traffic will be on the new one. And by that way, by not manipulating PIM, we've not only saved ourselves from the risk, but we've gotten our team down this. I said I did this with a customer in Dubai, as well as several organizations that are delivering production IP video. Now, the interview was over there, Hakeem. They're like, okay, thank you. Now, Mike, what are you really interested in life? Let's talk about your goals in life. Let's talk about your goals for your career here. It was it. So I intentionally went deeper because that was where I was an expert. But as a rule, keep your interviews to an answer. But again, Hakeem, it's not, people aren't robots. And when I hear these rules that sound like robot rules, I get nervous. If you're talking and someone's leaning in, keep talking. If they start to lean back in their chair, stop talking. If you're in person and their feet point toward the door, stop immediately. If my arms cross, either change the topic or move on based upon what you're seeing in the other cluster of body languages. So, Hakeem, it's never a rule. It's always adapt, adapt, adapt. And that's why we're not technicians, Hakeem. And that's why architects are such executives. And that's why they only want executives to be architects. Because the things that I just told you, imagine this, Hakeem, and I know you want to be a cloud architect. Now you're going to go interview the CEO for a $1 trillion company. As an architect, you're probably going to do that. And ask them about their business goals, pain points, and challenges. At some point in your career, you may do that. Now, that CEO of that $1 trillion company, I promise you, doesn't care about S3 or EBS. They do care about revenue. They care about productivity. They care about cost of goods sold. They care about other ongoing expenses. They care about their capital expenses, their operational expenses. They care about, the competition. They care about the survival in the future. That's what they care about. And when we go interview an executive, we have a way, something we plan on talking about, but we have to adapt to based on the things they're telling us in real time. So my thoughts are, read the room, and read the room some more. Plan on 1 minute or less, yes, but read the room. Sometimes you'll go 1 minute and you're going to deal with somebody that wants depth, and they're going to look at you, and if you don't give them more, they're going to be like, okay, and now what? Other times, if you go more than 30 seconds, it's too much. So read the room, read the room, read the room. So I do like it as a rule, stay less than a minute, yes, 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 but more importantly, read the room. And that way, you can adapt to every situation. Hope I answered your question there, Hakeem. Great question, by the way. You see the link is up, so I'll mention it. The 30% discount code is back because of what we see going on with the economy. Inflation is sky high. The average American is between the last 12 months is working, literally speaking, 1 month free, meaning if inflation is 8-point-something%, and right now, and that's an optimistic number after we strip out some of the core stuff, 8 times 12 is 96. The average American in the last year is working 1 month free because of the amount that they've lost through inflation. What's the best hedge against inflation? Raise your income, and that's why we have a 30% discount code off of all of our courses, because I want you all getting cloud hard. Rakesh, hello, Mike. Do we really need data centers for new startup enterprises who can use cloud directly? What are the business requirements, Rakesh? It's all based on the business requirements. If you need critical low latency, you can't do that on the cloud. If you need extreme disk performance, you can't do that on the cloud. What are your availability requirements? I'm not going to stick everything in a single cloud and then let that cloud go and be down for 8 hours. But maybe I can. What if it's a website for my cat Cindy? And it's called mycatcindy.com, and it's little photos of my cat Cindy doing cute stuff and eating and leg giggling and doing flips in the air and chewing through Ethernet cables. Yeah, I can stick that in a single cloud. What if I need nanosecond latency? I can't stick that in the cloud. What if I need critical availability? Well, then I can use 2 clouds, or I can use a hybrid cloud, or I can use a hybrid cloud multi-cloud. So the key is data centers are still there, Rakesh, and data center spending is not going down. It's actually increased in the last year. Wait, we're all going to the cloud and data center spending increased because Some things are cheaper on the cloud. Some things are more expensive on the cloud. Some things the cloud does better. Some things the cloud doesn't good. So Rakesh, what determines your architecture is always, what is the business problem we're trying to solve? What is the use of the equipment? If you're using it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's cheaper in the data center. If you're using it sporadically, it's cheaper on the cloud. What business problem are you solving, Rakesh? It's never about the technology. Ever. It's always about what challenge you're trying to solve. So I don't really know the problem you're trying to solve. If you're dealing with a bank, no way it's not gonna never be on the cloud because we need critical performance. If we're dealing with a hospital and you go to the cloud and the cloud goes down, people die fast. So do you want people dying? No. So do you use 2 clouds or hybrid cloud? Those are the kind of considerations. Is it cheaper to be in the data center? Is it cheaper to be in the cloud? Is it cheaper to be in the data center and cloud burst to the cloud? What business problems are you trying to solve? All in all, you're still going to need some kind of networking capabilities to go to the cloud. Where you put that in a wiring closet or a data center, you still need to have things that you're going to need in your local business. So some startups need a data center, some don't. And that goes back to all the reasons why what's in certification is meaningless. What is the business problem? And guess what? No certification covers business problems, business challenges, and designing solutions for them. Here's what the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is. Here's the name of a proprietary service, which you're probably not going to use, and here's how to configure it. Huh, great. But I don't configure things as an architect. I design it, present it, and sell it. So tell me the business problem, then I can help you find the solution. But the business drives the technology. The technology is just a tool, just a tool. So think of it as a tool. Which tool do you use for a project? What's the right tool for the job? Got to tell me the job before I can answer that question. But I can tell you this, if you join us tomorrow on the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar, we will tell you everything you need to know to become a cloud architect. And if you want to become a cloud engineer, that's fine too. Not only will I talk for about an hour on how to do it, I will leave 1 hour, 60 minutes on Zoom for live questions for you to ask, or you can ask questions on YouTube if you don't me on Zoom. I don't care. We'll get to your questions either case, because all I care about is getting you all cloud hired. Chris, if you want to go to the next one. Cloud hired, good to see you. Almighty cloud hired, yes, absolutely. Approximately how long does it take to complete the cloud engineering program? About 8 months it takes for people to get through our program. About 8 months. So our cloud engineering program is a very good program. Because what we do is we train people exactly for their career. So while a cloud architect designs, presents, and sells means goes to meetings, sells stuff, the cloud engineer is this deep, strong technology professional that builds it, where the architect is actually a business executive. So in order to do the job, we have to teach networking. And we don't teach networking by hobbyists. We're not going to say, hey, I passed an AWS advanced networking and now I'm teaching it. We have Cisco certified internet experts teaching networking that have 20 years experience working for Cisco and Juniper Networks that have designed and built the world's largest networks. So we have that. So we get deeply involved in cloud networking, and here's the reason why. If you don't have the network right, which is the foundation of the house, everything comes crashing down. So we get very heavy into the networking. At least the Cisco Certified Network Professional, which is about 10,000 times greater than the AWS Advanced Networking. Now, because we're dealing with the cloud, we teach our engineers how to build, and we teach on AWS, we teach on Azure, because they're the 2 most common clouds, and there's no such thing as a single cloud solution in today's world. I mean, some people don't know better, but 87% of all organizations are using more than one cloud right now. So, and 97% want to be, so we teach this. Okay, kind of keep that. Next, what else are we dealing with on a routine basis? We are teaching people deep about all the technologies. So we're talking routing, switching, routing protocols, IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, networking protocols, switching concepts, wide area network technology concepts, And then we get deep into containers and server virtualization and storage area networks such as block storage, object storage, and file storage. We get deep into databases and what they do. We get really deep into security architectures and security management of firewalls, next generation firewalls, VPN concentrators, IDS systems, and things like that. Deep. Now remember, what does the cloud engineer do? They take the stuff that's in the network and data center to the cloud. So it's not like you can just learn the cloud. If you don't know the network and the data center, you have no concept of the cloud. And guess what the cloud is? A network and a data center that you're running space in. So that's why we focus so much skills. And that's what's wrong with 99% of the cloud training programs, which is why people don't get hired after spending thousands of dollars, because they learn everything else other than the stuff that matters. So then after we do that, we get you on the cloud, we get you configuring on the cloud with the management console and the CLI. And then we also get relatively deep into infrastructure as code in Terraform. Because let's face it, it's much more efficient to use infrastructure as code to deploy your thing. So we teach Terraform in our program fairly deeply. We also do a little bit of teaching about CI/CD pipelines in our program as well, because that's kind of critical as well for cloud engineers, not architects, but engineers. Now, you really need to know Linux as a cloud engineer, because where are all the servers in today's world? Linux. Top biggest, like 495 of the 500 biggest servers in the world are all Linux. So we teach Linux, 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 and more Linux. And we've got a very deep Linux program inside of our cloud engineering program. And we also teach some Python because that's critical for that job. But we've got a lot of things that you do. And of course, we've got labs. We've got the lab, the traditional people do, the AWS ones and Azure ones, but we have some real labs that I call get tired labs. All of our students will VPN into our data center. They will have access to a server, and they will literally speaking design and build their own cloud from scratch. I'm very proud of that. And here's the reason why. Regular people say, hey, I did some little silly thing on Git. And my students say, I built a cloud. So, when employers want the following: competency, energy, enthusiasm, passion, willingness to go above and beyond. Hey, I did a little lab. I built a cloud. Our students roar like lions, and that's why they get hired every single day. And of course, our students in our data center will be working with server virtualization and containers the original way, the hard way. And that way they know every single cloud, because my students learn the cloud from the inside out. How do you design it? How do you build it? What are the components that make the cloud possible? And my students will be setting up file servers the hard way in the data center, because in the cloud, it's click 2 buttons. My students will learn the right way. My students will be building with the Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stack. My students will be working with Active Directory servers. My students will be working with firewalls and VPN concentrators, all critical stuff for the job. And of course, my students build their own cloud. Now then, what do? That gives you all those great cloud competencies, which is enough tech to get you hired. But when you're not hired, getting that first tech job is a little challenging. So our secret sauce is we put a $30,000 to $40,000 soft skills and leadership course inside of this course. And why do we do it? We do it because I know, after speaking to thousands of hiring managers, thousands of recruiters, doing 6,000 interviews myself, that managers view 50% of your interview related to your competency, but 50% is the other stuff. So we focus exclusively on training you for that other stuff, which is your sales skills, your leadership skills, your executive presence, your emotional intelligence, your business acumen, and those kind of things. These are really there. Your presentation skills, maximize these things, and not only can you avoid all those junior engineering jobs and get a much better engineering job, but you are much likely to be hired. So it takes about 8 months, and that's our process. And of course, we teach you how to build your brand, how to interview, how to negotiate a higher salary, because our students are the most elite in the world, and we push it that way because that's what we love to do. We're not about training a gazillion and one people and here you're all certified and you sit on the sidelines and you can't get hired. We're all about building your career and getting you all cloud hired. So it takes us about 8 months for someone who takes the program seriously. Great question, ST751E. Good night. Hello, you're currently going through a DevOps course. What is your guidance on also having AWS DevOps, having an edge? If yes, how do you encounter the AWS DevOps professional? So, Vinay, look, Passing the AWS DevOps exam, sure, no big deal. You can spend a week on it and be done with it. Nothing. They're very simple. If you really know DevOps, for real, then the AWS DevOps Pro exam you can do in 2 days. Because it's the same stuff. It's just how do you do it on AWS? So it's just learning their vocabulary. So yes, it will help you get an interview having the DevOps Pro, but it won't help you get a job. But it will help you get an interview. See, what we have to remember is what is a certification? It's a piece of paper that creates what's called an illusion or fake competency. Now, we hiring managers know that just because somebody passed a certification, they have known that doesn't mean they know anything, but it gives us hope that they might. So in some cases, if it's a professional certification, it's enough to bring in somebody for an interview. And then that's what we determine what are you doing. So my question is for you, what kind of a software developer are you, Vinay? Because if you're not a software developer, honestly, you're not going to be having a good career in DevOps. So assuming you become a good software developer first, and then you take good DevOps training, assuming it's good, and then you actually learn it off of the cloud. You know, all the DevOps tools, whether they be Jenkins, Spinnaker, or Git, and there's so many of them, off of the cloud. And then you learn the cloud DevOps tools, then you've got a much stronger position. But what is your programming knowledge? How good is your Python skills? How good are your Terraform skills? How good are your automation skills? Those are the things that are there. So look, the certification will help you get the interview. The DevOps Pro, not the DevOps Associate. But how do you pass it? Honestly, you could buy a practice exam and spend 3 days memorizing questions and answers and passing it. There is zero in that certification that's worthwhile. But, you know, passing the exam to help you get an interview might help if you have no background. So there is that. Realistically speaking, otherwise, if it was me, I don't believe in going to anybody that's 10x certified, and here's the reason why. Anytime somebody's 6x certified, 7x certified, 8x, 9x, or 10x certified, you know what they know? Nothing. They don't even know what they don't know. For example, when I passed the Cisco Certified Network Associate 20-some years ago, I thought I knew networking. Then I passed the Cisco Certified Network Professional, and I went, there's more to networking than I thought, but I still think I know it. Then I became one of the first Cisco Certified Internet Experts. And in those days, it was a massive T-Date exam with like a 95% failure rate. When I passed that exam, I went, oh my God, there's so much networking I don't know yet. And that's the difference between an expert versus a 10x certified person. The 10x certified person or the 7x, they don't even know what they don't know. They're so busy passing an exam in 10 different people's careers, they don't know anything about any of the careers, which is why they're the most dangerous people in the world. So Vinay, I'm going to tell you this. If you want some DevOps certification, you buy training, make sure the following. Make sure the person doesn't have more than 2 or 3 certifications, otherwise they're not knowledgeable. If they're teaching DevOps, they must be a good software engineer first, otherwise they don't know DevOps. So there are companies that will teach you the DevOps course, like Global Knowledge, for example. They will have a quality DevOps course for the certifying, but I'd stay away from any of the things on Udemy, and I'd focus on learning. Now, there also often are good publications that are official publication manuals of Google and Azure. Cybex writes them for AWS. Those books tend to be quality, and they tend to have people that are good writing those books, so that is also good. But it's pretty easy. You read the AWS white papers, you do some stuff on DevOps to get used to the way I've asked the questions. These are simple exams. And because it's so easy to pass these exams, that's why, as a rule, they don't mean that much in the industry. But it will help you get an interview. And I do like the DevOps Professional. So there's a couple ways you can do it, but I'd look for a Cybex book on it first. I'd read the AWS white papers, but first I would learn DevOps engineering, and more DevOps engineering. That would be what I would do first. But I hope if you want to be a DevOps engineer that you're a software engineer and you know something about coding, because otherwise just being certified and taking DevOps courses is not enough. Hope I answered your question there, Vinay. I don't really teach DevOps, but I think it's a valuable career. But we don't teach anything in the software development world. We teach the highest paying jobs because that's where we're at and the ones with the most career potential. But I think there's opportunities in DevOps, good opportunities. It's just not our specialty, and I'm not a software engineer. And since I'm not a software engineer, I don't teach anything for which case we're not an expert, because it's not fair for our students. We don't want to be like those AWS certification providers teaching courses that they don't know about. We only teach what we're experts on. So keep that in the back of your mind, and you should be good to go. Hakeem, if people knew how much value your course offered, you would have 1 million students. Thank you, Hakeem. Your course is literally the best money you've spent in 2022. Hakeem, thank you for that. I love hearing this. We do hear it a fair amount, and that's why we did. We basically put together a massive program that would cost a fortune. And I don't need to work at all. I was retired. I actually enjoyed being retired. What did I not enjoy? I did not enjoy when I was coaching my friend on getting a job, because I've been a career coach forever and I was doing private coaching. And my friend said, my kid's ready to graduate with a degree soon, real soon, in computer engineering. Could you teach him much most effective like the rest of your interns? I said, you got it. And I bought him those 3 courses that are out there, the best-selling ones. 2 were on Udemy, and some was a guy in Australia who trades under his own name. And I bought him these 3 courses, and after 3 days, the person I was training called me back, and he says, Mike, he said, I set up an EC2 instant S3 bucket. What is it? And I literally laughed. I'm like, what do you mean, what is it? How lazy can you be not know? And then I watched these 3 horrible courses in horror. I mean, I was literally horrified. I watched it and I was laughing. I'm like, they're teaching how to configure stuff that they haven't even defined yet. And I looked at this and said, oh my God, what a waste of people's time. What a waste of people's money. Look at all the opportunity cost of their time. They're going to waste a year on all this nonsense and still not be hireable. So I wanted to see if I was right, Hakeem, and I interviewed 1,000 people that had taken those programs. None knew architecture at all, like 0. So that's why I started this course, and I've gotten people hired almost every single day of the week. It's exciting as can be. So thank you so much. We are committed to hired. Here's what I view as a piece of paper. Here's this what certification is. Can you take this to the bank and cash it? No. Can you say to your manager, I want a raise? No. So to me, this is good if your house is cold. You can light your certifications on fire and warm your house, but you can't cash them at the bank. We try to teach the life skills, the transferable skills to build people's careers. Hakeem, thank you for noticing. We are so committed to building elite careers. That's everything and everything to us. So thank you for noticing. And please spread the word. I want everybody that wants a cloud job hired. And I don't want them getting basic jobs. I want them getting the highest paying jobs, knowing how to negotiate the highest salary, and having a career that can potentially even create generational wealth. That's what we do what I do. That's why I do what I do, and I love what I do. So thank you so much for noticing. User 123, which certification should you do first? User 123, what was your career goal? So if you ask me which airplane I should get on, which is the same question you're asking me, I'd say, what's your destination? Is it Chicago? Is it Cape Town? Is it the Cayman Islands? Is it Cameroon? Is it Cambodia? I don't know. You tell me that, I tell you which plane to get on. Which certification should you do first? What is your goal? Your goal determines your certification. I will tell you, for one thing, for most cases, don't touch the cloud practitioner. It's worthless. In other cases, it makes sense based upon where you're at and what you should do. So if you wanted to be a sales rep, I'd say, yeah, do the cloud practitioner, because that's what it's designed for. What do you want to do? Tell me what you want to do, and then I can tell you which certifications make sense. But the key is not to just get a bunch of certifications. Here's what happens when you do. So imagine 2 situations. Situation 1 is we have an archer that's launching a bow and arrow. And they're launching an arrow directly at the bullseye. And they're an expert archer. They take this arrow, poof, it goes straight to the bullseye. Why? Because the archer knew exactly what they wanted. They were perfectly trained, and they were an expert. Now let's look at what most people do. They're kind of like the untrained archer. Here's my sys-up cert, cling, and it hits the ground. Here's my DevOps cert, poof, it hits the ground. I took an Alexa cert, poof, hits the ground somewhere else, and they never hit the target. Why do they hit the target? Because they're obsessed with chasing certifications. I want you to be laser focused, like a sniper. Go in there and get exactly what you want, like a surgeon. A surgeon just doesn't rip open the body and get a bunch of certifications. The surgeon says there's an appendix problem. Let me go create a small incision, put in my tool, pull out the appendix, and suture it up. That's what they do. I want you to be surgeon-like. So what would you like to do? That is the key. What would you like to do? You do that, and then you'll get a great job. So tell me your desires, because otherwise what you just asked me is the equivalent of, what plane should I get on? I'm going to say, where do you want to go? Personally, I think the Cayman Islands sounds great. Haven't been to Cape Town in a long time. Haven't been to Cameroon ever, and I've got 2 people there that I'd love to meet and some friends there. So, that sounds fun too, but I need to know my destination before I get there. So please tell me your destination, and then I can tell you what certifications go. Because the certifications are sort of like little bits and pieces along the way to show you've done something to look more credible. So tell me what you want. And then I can tell you where to go. And Chris, we go to the next one. I don't have enough information to answer this question intelligently. Oh, Marie, I love this question. When you were hired as a cloud architect, what would be the main thing you focus on? So Marie, here's what you do as a cloud architect. You design, present, and sell. That's the entire job. So let's talk about your day. About 50% of your day will be going to meetings. Yes, meetings. And in these meetings, you will be selling, delivering presentations, gathering customer requirements, managing customer relationships, schmoozing, taking clients to lunches, dinners, drinks, taking clients golfing, relationship development. So at least 50% of your day will be focused on talking to people, presentations and meetings. About 25% of your day will be writing documents. What are these documents? Well, there will be architectural documents. There will be thought leadership documents. They will be white papers to try and sway an industry. They will be responding to requests for information, RFIs, RFPs, requests for proposals, RFQs, requests for quotes. They might be making some minor project plans, although we're not program managers. We do a little bit of program management. You'll be writing up statements of work. So that's 15 to 25% of your day. So 50% of your days are meetings. Now, Maria, I'm going to tell you there's going to be weeks where all you do is go to meetings. Then 15 to 25% of your day is going to be that. Now, the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing firefighting. And no, we're not going to be taking hoses like I did in my youth and putting out building fires. But what are we going to be doing? We're going to be putting out business fires. So what's going to happen is some engineer is going to upset somebody at your customer, and then you're going to have to go schmooze and take your customer to lunch, repair the relationships. There's going to be that firefight. There's going to be an outage, for example. Something went wrong. And while the customer calls the technical support center, if it's a big outage, you may show in, fly to the customer site and talk to them. Let me buy you lunch. Let's talk. I've got a team coming in. I escalated. I created a critical account, a case to this. We got a team of an army of people coming in to solve your problems. While you're here, I'm bringing in some food. I'm here to manage the team. So we do a lot of that. So, there's that's the kind of firefighting we do a lot of the day. When we're not there, we're going to be attending conferences, doing executive briefings, more writing. So, Mary, what did I not talk about? The tech. We don't touch the tech at all. I mean, we do have a notebook computer. We typically use Microsoft Word to write documents and Microsoft PowerPoint for presentations, and we typically use email. And we also typically have a graphics program that we would draw, such as Lucidchart, Draw.io, Visio, that kind of thing. But that's the limitation of our tech. The other thing that we'll be doing is proof of concepts. Now, when you do proof of concepts, Marie, guess what? We don't touch the tech. We bring in a team of cloud engineers and we manage that team, which means they're working. We're taking them out to lunches and dinners and drinks. We become the psychologist that deals with each person's emotional problems because employees have challenges. Work is hard and you need to schmooze. And again, so now you can see why I show what's in certification is not relevant, because that's not what we do. Our whole job is design, present, and sell. The whole thing. So that's all it is. Presentations, meetings, sales meetings, more meetings, more meetings, more meetings. And Marie, I speak to a lot of my students after we've gotten them hired, and I've been an architect for 25 years, and it's a funny conversation. Oh my God, Mike, you were right. I don't touch tech. Why did you teach me so much tech? And I said, you had to pass that interview, right? And they say, yes. And then one of my people yesterday was saying, oh my God, Mike, I was doing firefighting like you told me. I said, what kind of firefighting? They said, an engineer came into the meeting and offended the customer. So I had to go schmooze and smooth it out. I said, yep, that's part of the job. I got another cloud architect in England that said, Mike, it's been a year. I'm so grateful for your help. I went from being in a place where I couldn't afford my lifestyle to now I just got married. And I've got new cars and my house is all better. And life is so good. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Am I ever going to touch the tech, Mike? Because all I've done is gone to meetings and written statements of work and given presentations. I said, no, that's the job. So think of this as a business, you being as a business executive who's designing a solution that's really about tech. So for those of us that have been management consultants, which is management consultancy and mentoring is really how I learned architecture. It's really about go interact with the client, find their chief complaint or primary problem or chief goal, then figure out what they currently have, then figure out what the optimal end state is, and then figure out what makes it better. Tech, new business processes, those kind of things. So Maria, it's a really great job. It's an incredible job. It's high paying, the hours are good. It's not like when you're an engineer and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're fixing something. Trust me, I've done my engineering and I loved it. But it's more fun for me to design, present, and sell and take people out for lunches, dinners, and drinks, because that's what I enjoy. I enjoy being with people more than I enjoy the tech. It's a great job, Maria. As it turns out, I have a video, I don't know if we released it or if we're going to be releasing it very soon, on exactly how does a cloud architect spend their day. But the main focus will be on meetings and presentations and discussions with others, trying to sell. Or writing up documents that are designed to sell. See, with cloud architects, one of my recent graduates, really impressive guy, working for a local global bank. He joined us about a year ago, no degree whatsoever. And now he's got a brand new house, 2 beautiful kittens, which makes me very excited because we all know I love cats. He's an incredibly fine person. And he says, Mike, I go to meetings. He said, you're right. I advise. I don't touch the tech. I advise people all day. I can give you people that work at AWS that do the same thing. People that are working at Microsoft, the students that I have. People that work at Cisco as architects that are doing this. People that are working at Bearing Point and KPMG and Accenture, they're all doing the same job. Even the big banks. Design, present, and sell. Meeting. Lead. Meeting. Write up, document. Great question, Marie. Chris, you can go to the next one. Mike, what are your thoughts about Akira? Is it really network as a service of world scale out or network? Look, Rakesh, who owns the network? Cisco and Juniper. They own the network. They are the network. All this other stuff, just networking solutions. My thoughts are when you really need networking, you build it yourself. See, here's the difference of software as a service, platform as a service, anything as a service. Now, Rakesh, if I went to a McDonald's and I asked for a basic hamburger, I haven't been to a McDonald's in decades because that's not my thing. But if you go to a McDonald's, a Burger King, or a fast food restaurant, they say, would you like fries with that? From what I've heard, would you like to supersize that? And it's the same ordinary average thing that's good enough for most people. It's good enough. So let's say we were going to have a chicken burger at McDonald's. So if I go to McDonald's and order a chicken burger, a hamburger made out of chicken, it's always going to be the same thing at every McDonald's everywhere in the world. Is it going to be great? No. Is it going to be bad? No. It's going to be somewhere in the between. It's average, ordinary stuff. Network as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, you're getting somebody else's cookie cuttered, almost good enough stuff. Now, by comparison, if we went to the world's greatest chicken restaurant, a fine dining establishment where they charge $400 for the chicken sandwich, now we've got a master chef that's coming in and they can find the right chicken. They're an expert on seasonings and spices. They're an expert on cooking and can develop a process. That chicken burger is going to be 1,000,000 times better than the thing that we got at the fast food restaurant. Network as a service is saying, here's your good enough stuff. Software as a service is here's commodity stuff, good enough. Platform as a service is we manage it for you, which means you don't manage it, but what you're getting is good enough, like fast food. when it matters, Rakesh, and it really matters a lot of the time. We're not using network as a service. We're not using software as a service. We're not using serverless. We're not using any of that nonsense. We're going to build it ourselves. That's the difference. So no, I think that some of these network as a service things will get there. But for me, it's there. Now, if anybody's going to do network as a service, it's not going to be a mini company like that. It's going to be a huge one like Verizon or AT&T or BT or CenturyLink. In India, they used to have Reliance, an incredible internet service provider / phone company. They have the capabilities to do it, not these other people. They can do network as a service. Why? They've got 40 years experience in designing the most high-performance networks in the world. They can do it. But I'm not going to say Alkira is going to be my long-term pick for anything. I'm not going to say that you're going to scale your network by using network as a service. I'm going to say if you really want good networking, you're going to build it yourself. If you're looking as close to as possible, you're going to find a good SASE provider. Versa Networks is a good SASE provider, real good. Aviatrix is a good SASE provider, real good. But there's other good SASE providers as well. But for right now, it's all about Cisco and Juniper as your lead networking partner, people that have the expertise to build real high-performance networks. And if it matters, so what we've seen is a lot of people went to these services and they went, okay, not good enough, let's go back. There were a lot of people in Australia who put everything in the cloud, which didn't make sense. And then they realized it was too expensive to put everything in the cloud. Now they're building data centers again. So the cloud is great. Platform as a service is great. Serverless has its choices where it's good and places where it's horrible. But there's times where it's good. Network as a service can be great or it can be horrible. It all goes back to what is the business requirements that you're trying to solve. It's never about the tech. Even Steve Jobs, he made a big video. Don't talk about its product. It's not about the product. It's about what problem that it solves. So you tell me the business case and the business challenge you have, and then we can figure out the right technology. But it's never about just pick tech. It's always about what is the business problem? What are the business goals? Then you'll be in good shape. Chris, you can go to the next one. Chris, I think we can go to Manu's question. So we've got about 10 minutes, so please feel free to ask some questions. And I'll give you any answers I can. Manu, hi, Mike. Which certification should I go for after the CSA? Should I go for the CSA Pro or AWS Developer Person if your goal is to develop? Okay, Manu, here's the question. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, there's no point in you ever doing this AWS Developer Associate. If you want to become a good software developer, become a good software developer. Now, unfortunately, there's not a lot of great software developer certifications. So instead, focus on becoming a great developer. Now, I want to make it clear what associate certifications mean. Almost ready for the job, but not really. So getting an AWS developer cert is probably not going to build anything for you whatsoever because it's almost ready to be a developer. Now, when I look at the Certified Solution Architect Professional Exam and Associate, to me, what they are cloud admin certifications, name of a service and how to configure it. And I am not a fan on getting a bunch of worthless certifications, but if you get the Certified Solution Architect Professional, it kind of tells me that you've got some knowledge of the cloud. How much knowledge? About 10% of what you'd need to be an architect, about 25% of what you'd need to be a cloud admin, and maybe potentially help desk or something like that, because the certs are basic. But if you get the CSA Pro, it does look kind of good. So I'd probably do the professional certification because one professional certification is worth about 15 associate certifications just on your resume, because I do not like associate certifications. So you could do the Certified Solution Architect Professional, which shows that you sort of know the cloud. And then if you actually focused on becoming a good software engineer, that could help you. But I think for the key, that's really where I would be coming from. So I would be looking at, at that. I'd be more focused on your development, though, than any certification. I'd be more focused on your communication skills. I'd be more focused on your leadership skills, more focused on your presence. So if I asked you this, what languages do you know? That should be your first step. Because you don't need any certifications to work as a developer. So, do you know Java? Do you know Golang? Do you know C#? What code? Do you know Python? How good are you in the core languages? Number one, developing. That's the job. So how good of a software developer are you? That's number one. If you are a good software developer, you can work on any cloud, any data center, anywhere in the world with 0 certifications. So step one should not be the Certified Solution Architect anything. It should become a master developer. That's step one. Step two, if you want a certification, the AWS CSA1 Associate and Professional are good. Because if you're a true developer, and that's the real goal, chances are you're going to be, using some of those serverless environments and containers environments. So, you really need to know Kubernetes far more than you need to know a certification like the AWS. So I'd be more focused on learning development and maybe getting a Kubernetes certification if I was a developer to show that I know how to write applications and containers and microservices. That would be more valuable to you. And then if you wanted to make it look like you were a cloud developer, which is nothing different than any other developer anywhere else in the world, if you had the Kubernetes and you had the Certified Solution Architect Professional and you had real software development skills, you should do well. But what I want to tell you is right now, I don't want you to think getting certified is your path. This is all about becoming a great developer. So become the software engineer first, then learn all about microservices and how to design them. Then I'll learn about microservice orchestration like Kubernetes. And if you're going to get a certification, I'd probably do one there. And then, sure, do the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. It's a basic intro to the cloud certification, basic junior level certification. And that'll look like you're designed to develop things in the cloud. But remember, the certification is just the icing on the cake. It doesn't teach you the job. So learn the cake first. The cake for you is the developer. Become a developer first. Then you can get some certifications to show. But the certifications don't drive your career. Your career drives the certification. Good question. I know. ST751E. How much could you make as a cloud engineer, a cloud architect? Well, they're very different. So a cloud engineer is typically an $80,000 to $120,000 position. With the right soft skills, executive presence, communication skills, leadership skills, we can push that to about $200,000 a year. I'd say most of our graduates, including those that don't have high school, that don't have college degrees, are earning around $150 as their starting salary. The range we've seen with our graduates has been about $120 to $275. Actually, we had a $287,000 offer very recently with one of our students as well. But it's based upon where they started from. A cloud architect salary ranges anywhere from, say, $150,000 to $500,000 a year. And what it's really determined is based upon how much you have to offer the company, how much digital transformation. So here's the difference. Here's what makes your career. And I'll give you the pathway in terms of salaries. At the lowest salaries are your admin and help desk people. That is the lowest of the low in terms of salaries. As we move up the range, we hit the cloud engineer. It's the second to lowest salary. It's a great career, but the reason it's the second to lowest salary is as follows. Engineers are expense positions, meaning the company pays them. They don't bring in money to the company. They're the magical people that make everything work. So we can't live without them, but they don't bring in money. So lowest paid cloud admin, second lowest paid is the cloud engineer. The next level up, which is still a relatively low paid position, is what we call a technical architect, which is really an engineer that we decided to pay a little more. And we give him a fancy title. But the technical architect is really an engineer. They do only engineering things, not architect things. Then as we move up the realm, we hit the solution architect world. And the solution architect role is a pre-sales role in most cases. So as a solution architect, we go to our customer, we ask about their business problem, we design a solution, present it back, and sell it to them. So a solution architect will commonly close a $200 million deal. So the solution architect brings in a couple $100 million to the company. And because they're a source of revenue, they get paid more. So a solution architect is someone that says, I'll design your solution on AWS for you, or Azure, or Google. Now, as we go up the architect scale and pay range, the next thing that we hit is the cloud architect, which is why I teach that. What's the difference between a cloud architect and a solution architect? The cloud architect is a little more businessy, and the cloud architect knows how to work with multiple clouds versus a single cloud, which is what your customers demand. And that's why that pay is the highest. Now, next, as we move up the ranks, we get into the enterprise architect world, which is typically about a $300,000 job. And what is that? It's the same thing as the cloud architect, but focuses on 80% on the business and 20% on the technology. Now, these enterprise architect roles can be $300,000 to $500,000 a year easily, depending upon your sales, your commission, and things like that. And the next above that, it's kind of the business architect, which I've been too. What is the business architect do? They do the same thing as the enterprise architect, but they focus more on business processes, ROI modeling, and things. So what you can say is, as you get further away from the tech, more and more into the business, your salary goes up. So your determination is you have to make this determination. Do I love the technology so much that I want to be an engineer? And let's face it, it is an incredible career. I've got a friend, Moses. He's the most technically capable person I've ever met. You walk into his house, the lights change, he claps, he talks, TVs turn themselves on and off. A cat runs in his backyard, he gets a photo of his cat. It's truly amazing. I walk into that house and I love that he can do it. But to me, it's too much tech. In my house, I have my quiet room where I practice yoga and I'm saying Om and breathing. That's what I like. So I like to focus on the business. He loves the tech. He's been an engineer for 30 years now, and he's one of the best I've ever met. He loves it because he's great at it. So the key really is, what makes you happy? That's the ultimate goal. But remember, engineering positions always pay less than business positions. But it doesn't matter. What matters is how happy you are. You can't pick a career based on salary. Trust me. I know a lot of people that do it. And when I used to practice internal medicine, the people that picked a career based on salary, here's what they came in for. Mike, I've got anxiety, I've got depression, give me pills. Let's take control of your life. Here's a pill in the meantime, but let's take control of the life. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So more in business, but both are good. Rakesh, why AWS is the top compared to GCP? Rakesh, I'm not sure that AWS is on top. Azure has more revenue from the cloud than AWS does. Azure is gaining market share extremely aggressively. AWS was the first people to produce a major cloud. Azure was the second, and Google is the third. Now, Google's still losing money on the cloud because for lots of different reasons, even though they have a great cloud. Azure is probably in the best position for long-term success. Why? Why is Azure probably going to be the biggest cloud in our estimation? And I love the AWS cloud, don't get me wrong, but I think Azure is going to be the key. Microsoft has decades of experience in advising companies how to be more profitable through technology. They're the best at it. One of the best in the world. Cisco, IBM, Microsoft, best in the world at this. Now, Microsoft is embedded in nearly every desktop in the world. Microsoft and Exchange, for example, and Active Directory is in every country. So what we saw was a shift towards greater revenue from Microsoft actually than AWS. Now, when you break it down, in some ways you can see this AWS is still leaning, in some ways Azure is leaning based upon all cloud revenue versus smart cloud revenue versus other forms, but it's not. AWS and Azure are kind of, slugging it out. AWS has greater market share. Azure has greater revenues. Since they have greater revenues, I consider them to be the bigger cloud provider. But, it's up to that. Other cloud providers will pop up. And not only that, we got all these other great private clouds like Nutanix and OpenStack and all that stuff there too. But first to market's hard to be beat. And AWS has a very good cloud. It's an excellent cloud. There's lots of features and functions. And it's pretty terrific. But first to market is the only reason. Other cloud providers are growing and stealing market share by the day. Guess I can possibly take one more and then we need to finish up. Or actually, Nelson, I could be trained. I wouldn't mind with the server pay as you go. Really need the job. Well, that's why we have our training program, Nelson. We train people so they can get hired. Unfortunately, we've got to be trained before we can get hired. So that's why we have a training program to help you get a job. And that's why I created it. I'm concerned about everybody being there, but it costs a fortune to run the kind of program we have. And we're not in a position to fund the world. Now, we have competitors that charge $20,000 and $40,000 for their programs, and what they do is they pay after they get their first job. But that feels like indentured servitude to me, meaning you owe somebody after the fact, and it feels pretty offensive to me because it honestly feels like slavery. And I know a lot of our competitors are doing it with income sharing agreements, but it kind of makes me feel sick. And the reason it makes me feel sick is, when we charge somebody one price for a program and then they graduate and then they're hired, their whole life has changed. They don't owe us anything. They're there to go run and build and be happy. And I truly love that. So our model is not about having people owe us. Our model is about creating financial independence and wealth for our students and not being in debt. And that's why we don't do anything like that. That's why we picked the cheapest price we could possibly afford to run our course. The cheapest price. And we're running on the sale at the cheapest price we can do it because I really want to get people hired. But I don't want to create a debt burden or a work burden or anything that could be taking their careers and their finances away in the future. I don't want to do that. And that's why we don't do these things. So I'd love to help you. We can help you. That's why we do what we do. And that's why we also created the Cloud Architect Basic Program for people in developing nations and other people that couldn't attend our classes on time, so we can get our course a lot cheaper. Because to do the labs that'll get you hired is going to be taking a server that's at least $2,000. And our basic course with the discount costs $350. So that's why we created that. And we even have payment plans on that to let people do it over the course of 3 months. Because we know, and I'm from a developing nation, I'm from Greece. And I know what it's like to struggle, but sometimes you just got to invest in your education. I did. In fact, when I moved to tech, Nelson, 20-some years ago, I put $40,000 on my credit card to pay for the tech. I'm not joking. I bought a $5,000 MCSE boot camp, an $11,000 CCNP boot camp, and then I spent close to $30,000, $40,000 finishing my Cisco Certified Internet Expert to begin. I remember telling my wife, and she's like, yeah, just do it. We can pay it back once you have the money. And we did. So there is that. But that's why we don't do income sharing. It doesn't feel fair to me. People are asking us to do it, and I'm considering it, but I really want to give people financial freedom and independence as opposed to debt and ownership. So that's why we don't typically do that. But Nelson, you can ask lots of questions tomorrow on our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. So let me summarize on 3 things. Tomorrow, we have a How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar, and it's going to be completely free, and it's going to be on Zoom. And why do I do it on Zoom? Because after I present, I dedicate an hour for you to ask me personalized questions where I can look you in the eye and answer your questions. And I want to do that. So please join us tomorrow. We are writing a book on the Google Professional Cloud Architect. We're going to be giving it away free completely soon to help those in need across the world. Please pre-register now. The link is in the chat box as well as the description below. And let's face it, my team has looked at the global inflation, and we came back with a 30% off discount code using coupon code potential. So if you want to build your best cloud architect career, now is your time. Use coupon code potential and get yourselves cloud hired. This is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers. It's been an honor to spend the morning with you, and I look forward to seeing you in another day very soon. Take care, everyone.